Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the Occult Think Tank. My name is Greg. In today's program, I am going to be talking about free will, prophecy, and what the God of the Bible is based on what Christians claim. This latter is where things really get murky. But to begin this, the video I did yesterday where I had mentioned, and I'm going to be going back to comments from that individual in this, I had gotten this on BitChute, and BitChute is by far the more Christian driven in comments as well as the anti-Semitic type of comments that I get. But they had said, another attack on religion. Enjoy your one world government, fool. Before I get into my response to that, you'll notice on the other opposite side, I have the New Testament, and this is from supposedly Jesus, where it says, "But I say unto you that whosoever is angry with his brother without cause shall be in danger of the judgment. And whosoever shall say to his brother, Rika, shall be in danger of the council. Ooh. But whosoever shall say, thou fool, shall be in danger of hellfire." Christians, if you really value what your stupid Jesus said, I would wonder why you're so quick to call anyone that doesn't buy into your horse shit a fool. The thing is, what I had told this person is pointing out the bullshit of religious clowns is not really an attack on religion. It is more a black eye to those that try to employ tactics like mentioned. And I think it's interesting that my response is one that got a like, whereas theirs got nothing. That, to me, I don't really pay much attention to, but I do want to show, since I mentioned it, you may be wondering, what the hell is Rika? And in order to do that, that's why I use the E-sword, because going to the KJV Plus and then going down to where the word is, clicking on where it is in green will bring it up down here at the bottom. And that is, O empty one, that is thou worthless, as a term of utter vilification. Rika. Okay. And the council is the Jewish Sanhedrin, which really, to those that aren't Jewish, it wouldn't mean a damn thing. But I just find it interesting how this character of Jesus is so big on this hellfire shit. Even though that gets into an area that I just look at as being patently absurd. But then we have the follow-up from this guy. And these two comments are what he really, this is all he had said. I had responded to him in this, but he starts off, the use of personal pronoun he is to bring God into our understanding. I have a bit of an issue with that, because this is someone like him trying to justify the use of he And he claims God is personal, and we represent personal beings with he and she, which I would question, why don't you say she for this God figure, given that in our world, the ones that are the givers of life are the female. So why wouldn't you call God she instead of he if you really want to insist on this personal bullshit? But I find it interesting and a bit telling that it says that they have personal but non-human is it. So are they saying that an alien type of race that would be non-human, that they would be wanting to call it that it? I would see, and I would have had less issue with this person if they had said that the use of the word it is more disrespectful. I would have been, okay, touche. Because the aspect of being disrespectful to the fantasy character he's making up here, okay, fine. I'll be as disrespectful as I want to imaginary bullshit. But he goes on then to say the nothingness of God means, number one, he, or I would say it, is not a substance. Which is a bit perplexing in and of itself, because anything that would have a body would have a substance of some sort. Whether that substance would be an energy form or some kind of, I don't know. Because that's where, when you're getting into the shit that he does, I don't even see how you can use the term he in any capacity, or she. That's why it is the only thing that seems to fit the bullshit that's trying to be proposed. But he, or I would say it, is not made up of anything but himself, or I would say itself, which again comes down to what the fuck is that? And what I would really want to know from any Christian that would try using this type of argument, where are you getting your information? Are you just pulling it out of your ass and handing it to me as if it's a gold nugget when it's really just a shit turd? Because that's all this is. There is no basis. He doesn't even try to justify the bullshit he is just straight up making up. And that's what Christians do, and I want to stress this. I will show you from their Bible, from this bullshit, where something that I'm saying that is in their belief system, that here it is. These people, and it's common with Christians. I see this with almost all of them. There may be one or two that try to use some Bible verse to support their claim. However, most will simply make shit up and try to defend what they made up, and will not admit they made it up. They will instead try to act like this is the truth about God. No, it's not. It is something you made up to try and pitch your fantasy idea. But he goes on to say, and his makeup is not what makes anything in the universe or beyond. How does this person have this knowledge? Where did this knowledge come from? Other than, as I contend, he is simply making up bullshit. That should be number one. I'm making this up. Then it goes on, number two, he's not bound by time. To which I am, at this point, you're pissing on your own feet as far as free will. Because anything that would exist outside of time, what we term as free will, would not and could not, to that which is outside of time, exist. Because to something that is timeless, outside of the realm of time and would see all time type of thing, that fictional sci-fi type of idea, but something that would be in that type of state, every choice every person has ever made, it would have known from the word go, from before any of us were here. And if the purpose, as Christianity has tried to put forward, like I heard when I was growing up, that we're here to make a choice between God and Satan, to a God that is outside of time, it would already know the choices that every single person that would ever live would make regarding this question. So why go through the song and dance and simply skip to, you know, the outcome? You don't need to go through the bullshit. It seems Christians want to have it that you have to have life not to make a choice, but because so that this God can then turn around and say that you deserve to be tortured forever because you did what it knew you were going to do in the first place, and that it made you apparently to do what you did. But he then goes on to say he can't change, which I contend there are issues with that. Change is only constant, is the only constant thing, but God is not affected by anything outside of himself. Well, that makes this God extremely self-centered, that nothing outside of himself can affect him. That means he has absolutely no regard for you, me, this guy, anybody, because everything would be outside of itself. Like I said, he's pissing on his own feet. Everything can change, but God can't, because he is not made up of anything that time affects. I call bullshit on that, and unlike him, I actually have evidence from the Bible. There is, I think, it is Exodus 32, 32:14. And the Lord himself repented of the evil which he thought to do unto his people. Right here. This is something that this jackoff won't do. He just makes shit up and pulls it straight out of his ass, poopy turds and all dripping off of it, and trying to act like, here's a gold nugget. No, it's not. You're making shit up. And what I do is point out what is actually in the stupid book that these people claim to believe. I don't claim to believe what is in this Bible. I'm simply reporting on what is in the storybook that they're trying to act like tells people and them about this God. But I contend they don't even read the damn book, let alone to know anything about it. Because the idea of change, this idea of repented, it does mean essentially to change. And I'll show you that with the KJV Plus. By implication, to be sorry, and repent, basically change your behavior or change what you're thinking because of being sorry about a choice that you had made or that you were going to make. Regardless, for a God that is outside of time, this would be impossible. Because if it would have thought to do something, what could have possibly been introduced to this God that would get it to change its mind or change its position? Because according to what this guy claims, that nothing can but God can't change because he's not made up of anything that time affects. And God is not affected by anything outside of himself. So, upon what basis would Exodus 32:14 even be possible under the paradigm that this guy is making up? And then he goes into one of the omnis, omnipotence. God controls everything, but he himself is controlled by nothing. I would contend because this God does not exist. It is a self-refuting proposition. He is the force of creation again. And like I've said with so much of this, what evidence could this person have to try and assert what they are? There is no reason that anyone should give any consideration to statements like that there's absolutely no way to prove. That is just something that somebody can say because it sounds good to them, but it's not something that they can demonstrate or that they can show in any capacity is in any way real. This is the type of bullshit that they do. And this isn't an attack on religion. This is an attack on what baseless claims Christians make. But he designed what he wished. This guy is making this God figure out to be the most self-centered, narcissistic thing in all of the universe, because it's all about itself. Nothing outside of itself would matter to it. Empathy would be completely gone, not possible. And he gave the order of the cosmic circles. What the hell is that? Is this person trying to claim the laws of the universe? Like the strong and weak nuclear force, the force of magnetism, and so forth? and gravitational forces, it makes no sense to try and attribute cosmic forces or anything in the cosmos to an anthropomorphized being. But there was one question that came that I thought was actually a very good question that she asked. And how do you base your analysis of evidences that are true? It might not be worded the best, but basically, how do I base the analysis that I give? And I had said there is no actual evidence of a God. So what must be examined is textual claims, this type of shit, which Christians rarely, if ever, give, as well as philosophical claims, where you can examine the philosophy behind a claim that is being made, as well as identifying logical fallacies that are being employed. And I give a few examples of that, like an argument from ignorance and an appeal to popularity. But I then state, I also contend if a God would exist, it would put a higher value on, it wouldn't put a higher value on one human tribe over another. Even if what is being called a God is nothing more than an advanced alien race. To a less advanced race, the more advanced could be viewed as a God. Just as any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. We must use logic, reason, and an understanding of philosophy in order to flesh out what is worth considering and what should be disregarded as fantasy. These people, the religious Christians, they don't try to flesh out anything. All they try to do is find something that fits their narrative, that fits their agenda. And personally, I could give a damn if something fits an agenda or not. I'm more interested in what is actually the truth. What's real. Because when it comes to, and since I'm doing free will, I'll also go back to this idea because there is this silly notion. I had come across this picture, and even though I regard 90% of it as absolute bullshit, like the one tree, the spirit of God, and the other spirit of Satan, that's not a monotheism. That is more of a pantheon because it is dealing with the dueling opposites of Zoroastrianism. But this tree of life and tree of the knowledge of good and evil type of thing. The thing is, Christians are very big on the idea of people having free will. They need to have free will in order to even attempt to justify what their God is doing. Because they can shift it from the God that would really be, if the God is the ultimate authority type of thing, then, and it knows everything, then anything that would ever be going to happen that it wouldn't like because of it being all powerful, all knowing, and so forth, it would be able to reach in and just be, nope, I'm not going to let that happen. Or making it impossible for anyone to do what is undesirable. The thing is, it doesn't do that, because this idea of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, if you want to say it's an analogy, it's more an analogy for the developed brain. It could even be argued that what we're dealing with is the Anunnaki. And the idea of genetic manipulation by an alien race. Things like that would be far more plausible for different bullshit like this that tries to put forward this idea of this knowledge of good and evil type of shit. Because I've said it before in different videos, and I'll say it again. The knowledge of good and evil does not give you a disposition towards either choice. All it does is to give you the ability to differentiate the one from the other. If you do not know what good and evil are, then you would be unable to make a choice based on knowing good and evil. It is actually mentioned in the Bible in different places, like I had gone into in another video with, and I can show you this since I'm going to talk about it for a minute, the Isaiah 7:14 bullshit that is really the God giving this King Ahaz a sign type of thing, but that by the time this child shall know good from evil, that the three kings that he's worried about will be dead. But the fact that there is an age that a child needs to reach in order to know good from evil. This is something that means, despite what Christians will try to claim, you are not, none of us are born with this inherent knowledge of good and evil. Every child has to mature to a point or develop to a point where they can understand good from evil, or things that this is good, this is bad. That to a child that is a newborn, they have no conception of something is good or evil. I've heard it said that basically it goes back to the Sigmund Freud, that when a child is born, all they have initially is the id. The I want what I want and I want it now. And that over time, the ego and superego develop. The ego is I've heard it termed the false idea we have of ourselves, whereas the superego is based on the idea of authority and rules, which again will also come back to something that the child learns. That can get into a nurture over nature type of argument. But the idea of free will to something that is all-knowing is actually impossible. But I would also contend Christians like their idea of prophecy, and they like to act like this or that was prophesied. The thing is, and the truth of the matter is, prophecy takes a steaming dump on free will, which is the basis of the merch that I had made that you see here. That prophecy is shitting on free will. Because if you have, like Christians try to say, like that first one that had said about a one world government type of thing. If you believe in prophecy in any capacity, then you can't believe in free will. Because in order for an event to be known years, decades, or centuries, or millennia even, before it occurs, that means that whatever would have made the prediction of X is going to happen, that they would have known every event or everything that would happen that would lead up to that event of prophecy, or that is being prophesied about happening, that nothing could happen between those points that could alter the prophecy type of thing. But there's the idea, and it's very popular in science fiction, of if you go back in time, even not trying to change anything, that just the act of you're going from one time frame to an earlier time frame can radically alter the historical events that occurred from the point where you went back in time. And that it basically creates a type of paradox. Like, that's where if you go back in time and kill your grandfather, does that mean that you wouldn't exist? It's called the grandfather paradox. There are multiple paradoxes that people have thought of in relation to the aspect of time and moving through time and what changes to a timeline could make or would make. But the thing is, if you believe that prophecy is a thing, then you can't believe free will is a thing. Because if you have the ability to make a choice that is outside of what a God or whatever would have made this prediction, your free will choice could radically alter the course of events and so forth. And I find it interesting how Christians that want to try and act like there is this there is this God, and there is also this one world government type of thing. They seem to acknowledge that that is what is written in their Bible, not specifically verbatim of a one world government, but the idea is alluded to. And when I say that, can sound extremely vague. So I want to show you this, because there is no one world government verbatim mentioned anywhere in the Bible. But what is, and where people get these ideas, are through what would be symbology. And it's largely Revelation 13. But if they believe that there is this one world government that has to come to play, that has to come into being before this Jesus can return, if they actually believe this, it would make me wonder why every Christian that I have seen online that talks about this subject is openly opposing a one world government. Even though, according to their shit, this crap, that this one world government has to happen. It has to come to pass. If your God is saying X has to happen, and you're saying, no, I'm going to do everything I can to stop X from happening, then you're actually opposing your God. How can you claim to go along with everything your God wants if what your God is saying has to happen here in order for other things to happen? You're saying, oh no, I oppose that. I don't like that. What, does your God have to get your approval on his plan? Who's the boss here? Who's the one in control? I contend the God is a fictional creation. So yes, the religious person would be the one wanting to make this shit up, because that's what they're doing. They're making shit up. And most of them won't even try to get what they're saying to jive or even be able to be pointed to anything in this. They don't even care. I contend, even though I have shown how people can have an eSword Bible on their computer, like I have, that you see right in front of you, Christians don't want that. They want to try and act as if they care so much about this God. But a free program that they can download and have on their computer that they can easily reference, that's too much for them. When I started studying this shit back when I was 16, computers weren't a thing. At least not near to the degree that they are now. I think I had at that time a Commodore 64, and it was extremely basic with more of a DOS type operating system. But there wasn't anything like this on the computer at that time. The research and study that I was doing at 16, I had to have a Bible in front of me, a Strong's Concordance. I had to have multiple tools if I wanted to really deeply study a subject. These Christians don't do that. My parents that went to church every Sunday when I was a kid, I never once saw them crack a Bible. Or maybe if they would, it would be at Christmas time. For that bullshit. The thing is, if you're going to claim to believe this shit, crack the book. Try reading it through it. Try knowing the subject. The thing is, I contend people don't want to be bothered with that because they're more content to simply make it up as they go. Because that's really all it is about. It's not about being accurate in what you're putting forward. It is only, does what you're saying, at least in your own head, make your God seem plausible? Whereas to someone like me, I will not only look at what is in shit like this, but also if somebody makes a philosophical claim, I will examine and consider that and if I would have an objection or something, express that in a response, which would basically be part of the conversation about the subject. I don't have to believe in this fictional bullshit in order to discuss this fictional bullshit. Just like I can talk about not really just any fictional movie. No. I know like the Star Wars stuff to a point. I haven't really bothered with the newer, basically past Darth Vader and even the prequels. I can talk about Star Wars to a point. But the religious they don't even know as to the degree that I do with Star Wars about their own Bible. But they will try and act as if they're an expert. And what they're actually doing is just making it up. That they don't know what would be termed canon or not. They don't care. Because they're simply making shit up. And another analogy type of thing could be used with like Star Trek. I would be far more versed on the Star Trek universe than the Star Wars. But all of it's fictional. That is something that, whether it's Star Wars, Star Trek, or this shit, the Bible, it's all fictional bullshit. And if you want to have a conversation about a fictional story, I can have that. I can engage in fictional conversations. But you can't try to combine the Star Trek universe with the Star Wars universe and then maybe shove in the Bible when it fits what you're trying. You can't do that. You have to keep fictional stories in their own genre. But the idea of free will doesn't work when you have something that is all-knowing. And for Christians out there, if you're going to try and argue for the existence of a God, don't just make shit up. If you want to claim to know something regarding a God, then explain to me how you know. How did you come about this knowledge? And if something is just an idea that you have, that's fine. We can still have the conversation. But be warned. If something is just a flight of fancy that you have, it's not going to mean a damn thing to me. I'm not going to care about your flight of fancy. And if what you're trying to put forward goes against logic, common sense, or philosophy at all, or is a logical fallacy of one sort or another, I will call you out on that. And that the reason the religious don't want to do that is it is scary to question your own belief system to the degree that I'm talking about. Because when I walked away from Christianity, there was a period of time that I didn't know what I was, type of thing. Because I knew what I wasn't based on what I couldn't go along with. But what that meant ultimately, I had no idea. I had, by discarding the Jesus notion, I was jumping into a great big void. And for the religious, or for somebody that would be potentially young and so forth, and facing the ideas of not believing the Bible, I can tell you firsthand, yes, it is scary to go from a known belief system, even if it's bullshit, into the unknown of what does this make me? I get the fear and how uncomfortable that transition can be. Believe me, I get it. But I also feel that it is well worth going through that period of unknown. And you don't have to have all the answers. I don't have all the answers. Nobody has all the answers. When Christians try to act as if giving an answer to something that means they have an answer. No, if you can be making shit up. And that is no more valid than saying, I don't know. The only thing is, when you're making shit up, you can try to act like what you're making up is somehow valid, even though there is no reason to consider what you're making up to be anything other than made up bullshit. But feel free to leave your thoughts and comments in the comment section. Talk to you later, people.